So this young man, Mkristo, who is addicted to everything,
all sorts of things,
and who is doing everything the maximum, and these are all bad things,
and teaching it to other
people.
I think the journey of being exposed to different and all sorts of habits that I'm going to mention started when I was 5, putting off my clothes, and she was like, now we are going to have sex. And honestly speaking, I couldn't tell what sex was. She was just there, and every single day she was breakfast, lunch, sex, breakfast, lunch, sex. I was literally having sex every single day, not willingly, but because someone has just introduced it to me, and every single day it was like, you have to do it. And of course she really wanted to satisfy her lust, and of course it was affecting me in that pain. And of course, like, imagine how old she was, and you are doing something not from your will, not from like you're doing something as someone is forcing you to do something. So it was really a long process that was very painful. And so I remember that is when I started sleeping around. I was exposed to that. Just have met a person a very first time, but the easiest thing that you're going to do is just to kiss. So that was the level. That was the level. And so it made me popular. I remember going somewhere with this group of young men. We just went. So they started smoking. That one I was introduced to it. Weed. So they started smoking, and they said, do you want to try? I was like, yeah, let me try. And remember, everything I do, I maximize. My very first experience smoking, it was the entire bull. Like, it was the entire thing. Like, it was very crazy. Then I slept there.
Hello and welcome to podcast. This is a very new podcast, and I would like to invite you to invite your friends to come watch this podcast. It's going to be discussing a lot of principles to help all of us to be Christ-centered if you are already a Christian. And if you're not a Christian, I'm sure you're going to learn something that might attract you to fall in love with Christ. Having fun with Christ, you'll learn much more that would help you to become Christ-centered. I'm called Vitali Muvunyi, and I'm not the principal host of the talk show, but I've been privileged to host one of the very first episodes of this podcast. And in the studio, I'm with the owner of the podcast, Mr. Eric Mkristo himself. Please say hello to our viewers.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here, and thank you, Vital, for hosting me on this show. And I can't really wait to see how people are going to welcome us. And this is a new podcast, but I really hope that it is really going to be of a benefit. And I welcome you all to Christ Represented Podcast. And we, of course, as my brother said, we are going to be discussing a lot of different topics. And stay tuned, and you're going to be blessed.
Thank you. Tonight we're going to be really getting to know Mr. Mkristo. We're going to try to learn from his journey. I'm going to be trying to get from him as much as possible, as much as we can learn from him, and I hope that all of us will benefit from this. So one of the interesting things that someone asks themselves as soon as they get to meet you and to know you is your names. Mkristo. The first thing that comes to our mind is that it's possible that your parents must have been great Christians to have called you that. But before we get the name and to tell us how they ended up calling you that name, there's one interesting thing that I would like to know from you. One of the things that is always interesting to people, it's the love stories. Love stories have almost characterized every movie, every song, every literature
know,
on this planet. So, how about we start from the love story of your parents, and then to when they call you that name, and what was it that they had in mind? What is it what most Rwandans will call a person a name that equates the wish they have for the person. So, who is Mkristo? How did that come about? And then we'll get to know much more about you later.
All right. So thank you so very much for that question. It's really an amazing question, and it is really going to set a background of my life. And I will actually share from the knowledge I have so far about growing up and even the family in general. So I was, of course, I was born in a Christian family growing up. I was being taken to church every single Sunday, and, the word of God was shared. But there was something maybe missing growing up. That is going to take me back maybe before our parents met. My mom, of course, was still a young girl, and my dad had a family before, and he had a wife and children, and we all know what happened in Rwanda in 1994, the genocide against the Tutsi. So the wife and even the children, they were all wiped out, and he remained.
The wife and the children of
the father. Okay. They were all wiped out, and he remained alone. And you can really imagine. Now today I really understand, but imagine what that has done to his emotions and his inner being. It has really affected him, and of course my mom had fled to Burundi. And
she had fled there before the genocide?
Yeah, before the genocide. And of course, here life wasn't really easy, so she had to go to Burundi and, to see if she can really just find some comfort, some maybe life there. Some better life. And so after genocide, maybe a year later, she came back here, and so the only thing she had was to get married, and getting married to my dad, who was in that process, and he was still healing, and he was grieving and so on and so forth. And so it wasn't really easy, though everything was provided, though everything was there. Growing up, we were Christians and going to church, but there was something that was really missing. Something was
they
missing.
meet after the genocide, and then how were you their firstborn?
So after genocide, they got married, of course, and my mom already had my elder brother. She already had him, and of course, meeting, my mom already had my elder brother, and they got married. Then to both of them, I was their firstborn. Wow. Yeah.
So do you by any chance know who specifically called you that name?
So the story is told that it was mom, because she was a prayer warrior. She was a prayer driven, and she really believed in the personal, intimate relationship with God. And so it was from those, moments in the presence, and it was from, those days when she was, of course, believing that God would just bless her in her marriage and with children. And so God told her, what was going to happen. It was out of that. So so that's how she got my names and everything.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. So this is after genocide. Your father has lost his entire family, and your mom has just came back after the genocide, and then they meet and you're born. What was it like for you to grow up in that kind of place? I know there is people who are still grieving, but also there's people who are trying to build from scratch, who are trying to build a family, a new family kind of. And you keep saying my mom was I don't know why. Maybe you'll tell us. Is she still alive? Is she not? And so what was it for you to grow up from that place? the natural instinct would be that you were pampered so much because you were the firstborn of two parents who like your father had lost everyone, so you were like the newborn hope. I don't know why they didn't call you what was the name?
Hope or
Hope or
blessing.
Why was it like for you to grow up in that Christian family, and what happened to your mom?
All right, that is a good question. So growing up, now I reflect back and I understand. I relate now. I connect dots. Growing up, everything was provided. Everything was on the table. We couldn't really have asked for anything growing up. And but there was something missing. The emotional availability of our parents. So emotionally, they were just there providing, but because of that history and everything that happened to each of them and coming together, which I think maybe not taking the process of healing, and imagine being born in that season of their life. It was a little bit challenging growing up in that environment where emotions are not really involved, and you could really feel that there was something missing. But yet everything else was provided, everything was on the table. So growing up, it was a mixture. Like you are getting what you want, but an inner being, your inner person is really not being fed, not from a place of I don't want to do it, but from a place of maybe not knowing exactly what they could have done for them actually to be there and be available emotionally.
Or probably
for
not
us.
even having actually something to give, because one could imagine the kind of pain.
Yeah.
So you're growing up from that place, and I really wanted you to get to the story of your mom, this very believing mother who's comforting a man that has just lost everything and everyone, and then you're born. What was it like for you? Do you have any memories with your mom? Was your father working? Was he just staying home? Because many people that survived the genocide, even though some were able to survive without necessarily without having physical wounds that could stop them from working, some couldn't be able to work because they still had physical wounds that prevented them from being able to work. So just to give a picture to our viewers of what life was like at home, what was your mom doing, if you have any memories with her, and then what was your father? Was your father like able to work after the genocide?
Yeah, my dad was working, and even to date he still works.
Wow.
And he's still working. So I really do have a lot of memories with my mom. My mom was just a hero, and of course she's no longer there. She passed on, I think 24 years ago. So I was very, very, very young. 24 years back.
Sorry to hear that.
But I really I was 5-6 there, and I really still have, some memories with her. And she was a very caring, loving mother, and she was, she could really try her level best just to, to try to be there physically. She's just there, and she's providing, and she's advising you, and she's really trying her level best. And of course, as my dad was at work working, and my mom was a full-time mom, and of course she had some businesses aside, which really couldn't have taken her much of her time, but she was really, really there. And just I remember I could really pretend that I needed something, and for me to get it I could cry, and she could really, really tell that I'm trying to get something from her. And of course, she could really just provide everything that I could really need. So that was one of the tricks that I used to to use for me to get something from her. And another thing which I really, really remember, I loved sleeping on her laps, and telling me stories here and there. So I really still have that picture at the back of my mind. So memories are just a lot. And I remember one time I fell I fell, I climbed, on something, and then I fell down and was bleeding, and, she took me to the hospital, and she was, like a mother. She was just there worried and what is going to happen, and she's, do you want to eat something? Do you want to maybe a juice? And I still really remember at age of 5 or 6, something like that, but I still remember, and, around 10 p.m., that's when I fell, and she took me to the hospital, and we're just there, myself and her, and of course everyone else wasn't there yet, because she called them. We had gone to the hospital, Mukristo, foreign, and blah blah blah, everything, so I still have that, and she could really show you that she was just there, and anything that she could not do, maybe that would have really been from a place of not knowing that she could really have done.
Wow. It's a bittersweet story to hear, to be honest. And so she passes on. Had you started primary school yet? Were you still the kid that runs around playing with everybody?
I haven't started school yet. I was just, still young. Maybe a year or 2 years later, that's when I started, my primary. And yeah, funny enough, for me, for primary and secondary, I went to like one school. I've not changed schools. In my life, I just know 2 schools. Wow. Primary, so secondary, same school.
Very disciplined.
What are you talking about?
So, but before we get there, most of the times when a parent dies when you're very young, you don't know that someone has died and is never going to come back. For you, were you able at that time that your mother was never going to come back?
We were told that she has gone to heaven and she's going to come back sometime soon. Yeah, now it's been 24 years. Yeah, so, we could really see everyone crying, but yeah, we were just enjoying sweets and everything there, but we couldn't really tell exactly what was going on. So later realized that, my mom passed on. So the reality, my eyes were open to the reality that now she's not going to come back soon. Yeah, so as I grew up, now the reality kicked in, and I knew that she passed on, but that is way, way, way later, when I was, maybe 10, 11, 12, that my mom has passed on now. She's not going to come back. Yeah, but yeah, on that same day, people were crying, and we went to the hospital. I still remember. We went there. She was covered everywhere. She was shaved. I still remember. I still have that picture, seeing her, laying on the bed, and everyone crying, yeah, but it wasn't of a big deal to me, because I wasn't really,
My goodness.
Yeah.
Because of your very interesting story of a lot of struggles you've gone through and the triumph you have been able to get, I would really like us to get into your story. But before we leave the stories that are related to your parents, I would like to ask you this about your father. I've seen so many, I've read books and I've interviewed some people who have come from who have been born of parents that have survived the genocide. There's one common thing that characterizes people like you. It's when your parents look at you and they usually say, you resemble so and so that I have lost. You resemble my aunt that died. You resemble my brother that died. You resemble my son or my child that died. What was it for you and your father? What was your relationship? That's before you start primary school, while your mother is still around. Was your father having some, like, if one was to ask you, who do you resemble from your father's family that has been killed in 1994 genocide against Tutsi? That
one, he really didn't talk about that much. He was of a quite, personality, so I don't really have any memory, of us really having that conversation.
Completely understand. So now your mother dies. Yes, your father is still working, but your mother has been your hero. Has been taking care of you. He's been pampering you. You fall down, she runs fast, come and see you, and everything. What changes at home? How does your life become different after your mother dies? How do you go to school for the first day without your mom? What's life like?
Of course, it was a struggle. It was a struggle that now the person who used to be there for you, the person who was providing and giving you almost everything that you need as a child, she's no longer there. And, the words and even, like you're no longer receiving them. So it was lonely. It was very lonely. It was, I miss those days. Yeah, I miss them because, I can even still, I still remember, like I still have a picture. But of course it was lonely coming back that she's not there. And because of that, we were not, exactly being told of as a kid that your mom has gone somewhere to heaven and she's going to come back. I was really expecting her one day that she's going to come back. Yeah. So as I said, it's been now 24 years, but as I, kept growing up, the reality came and I was like, this is part of the journey. This is a part of life and we have just to cope up with everything that is going to come. So it was very lonely.
Yeah, so and again, this life you're living it with your big brother, and before your mother passed on, she didn't have any other child. Like you don't have a young brother or a young sister.
Oh, we are four. We are four. So of course, of my parents' meeting, So we my brother, myself, and our two sisters.
Okay. Yeah, so you were living together.
Yeah, sure.
Like they didn't. Many times when a mother dies, families will come and take so and so in this family and this in this family. Were you able to grow up together?
Yeah, we grew up together, though to some extent they just went to grandma, but it's only me who never went to live with anyone in the family. But everyone else has gone to live with our family, our aunties, grandma. Yeah, it is me who just stayed home. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like you started at school at 7 years.
Yeah.
I remember myself at 7 years. I don't know. It was probably because we were old enough to remember. Many kids don't remember when they went to school because they thought.
So, as I said, I went to same school, primary and secondary. So it's Nyamata Catholic. And like that school is very known, like everyone knows that school. Yeah, so my first day at school, it was very crazy. I am a chill person. I'm calm and I'm just there, So I was very quiet. I was just there, not exactly telling what was going on, but I was, super excited that I'm going, I'm going to school, but because of my friends, like we went together with our friends, and I was like, so this is another life, this is an amazing one, so I was super excited because I saw my people, I saw friends that we grew up together, and so I was like, this is a continuation of the normal life. And little did I know that we have to spend some good hours seated and then of course it was very boring. I really and the exams coming in, it was really 50-50. I was very happy and at the same time not really telling exactly which is which. I was just there a little bit, maybe I'll figure out later. But it was really fun, and they're confused, and you are with your people, but at the same time you are in uniform, and you are seeing strangers, you're seeing other people, and you are going to be in this class, and tomorrow you confuse it and you go to a different one. So it was a whole process of confusion, excitement, of course, as a kid. All right, so now I wasn't really good in school. So I've really spent, I normally brag about this. I went to that school when I was 7. I left it when I was 21, 22. You can really imagine.
So you did your primary and your high school in the same
In the same school. That's what I'm talking about. So imagine going, like spending literally 15 years in one place, in one school, same uniform. How about that?
So they had the same uniform in primary?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, the uniform was the kache, you know. But when we reached P5, P6, they changed. So
They changed the trousers?
I mean, like they changed even the colors, the entire uniform, and it was matching with high school. Yeah, so I was just there, same uniform, and for probably 11 or 12 years, same uniform. Yeah, so so I was literally an F student. I was an F student. You can really imagine how I was repeating like same class maybe twice or three times. Yeah, so it was really a struggle. It was a struggle because of another life that we are going to talk about that affected my academics. That is an amazing question, brother. So I think the journey of being exposed to different and all sorts of, habits that I'm going to mention started when I was 5. At 5, will I use the word raped at age of 5, and by house help. I still remember we, like, no one was home and we were just there. I remember her telling me that come and we go in the room. I was like, yeah, so she's the one, yeah, you see, yeah. So I was like, yeah, I just innocently went. And so I remember her, putting me on the bed and putting off my clothes, and she was like, now we are going to have sex. And honestly speaking, I couldn't tell what sex was. If I can really try to recall, because I still remember every scenario, everything, she was between 25, 28, something like that. And mind you, I was 5.
This is a 28-year-old woman and a 5-year-old boy.
Yeah. So the experience was really horrible. It was very painful. I still remember I had a black short on, and and she took it off, and she started doing it, and it was really painful. And afterwards she told me, if you tell anyone, I will kill you. And I haven't disclosed that until last year, May. So because it was something that was really triggered, it was a seed that was sown into my life. And that is when I was exposed to sex, and that is actually the very first habit I was introduced to among the many that I will share. And so as I'm saying, I embarked on that journey of sleeping around, and she was just there, and every single day she was, breakfast, lunch, sex. Breakfast, lunch, sex. I was literally having sex every single day, not willingly, but because someone has just introduced it to me, and every single day it was like, you have to do it. You have to do it. And of course, she really wanted to, satisfy her lust. And of course, it was affecting me in, that pain. And of course, like, imagine how old she was. And you are doing something not from your will, not from like you're doing something as, someone is forcing you to do something. So it was really a long process that was very painful. And so I remember that is when I started sleeping around. I was exposed to that at the age of 5, and from there until I gave my life to Christ, that's when I stopped doing it. Yeah. That is one of the habits.
Every day?
Of course, yeah. So now, if I can recall well, she was there for like 6 or how many years? She was there for a very long time. Yeah. And she was there, and
you were too scared to tell anybody?
Of course, I disclosed that my very first time talking about it was last year, 2024 in May. So you can really imagine how that really, was an attachment to my soul, to my heart. Yeah. So yeah, that is one of the habits that I was introduced to early on in life, and I really interpreted that as sex is part of life. I have to do sex every single day. And of course, yeah, so I was exposed to that. And now imagine I was used to those people who are grown up, and I couldn't really approach like a 5-year-old girl, couldn't, it was another story, but so I was used to those people, like to those, the old ones. And imagine now a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, trying to convince a 25-year-old lady that we have to have sex.
Wait a second. She's raping you every day, and you get a point when you actually develop this desire.
That becomes part of my life.
And now you're approaching girls.
Yeah, I'm approaching them, grown up ladies. I'm like, yeah, we have to have sex. And just imagine, convincing them. It was very crazy, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old trying to convince like someone who's grown to that level, and you are having sex with them. Why? Now you are trained. You are taught, the approach, and like everything, like you are exposed, and that one has become a need. It has become a need. It's something that is part of your life because you were introduced to it maybe 5-7 years ago, and it is part of your life, and you are doing it every single day. And I remember I could actually have multiple sex with different ladies, different girls, on a daily basis. It was really literally part of my life. It was part of my life. At age of 7 hours, just horrible. At age of 8, 10, 12 hours, just horrible. Having sex from here, and then maybe after an hour, I'm having sex with another girl. After an hour, having sex with another girl. And it reached a point where we're having like group sex. Like we just come, we're in the same room, and we are just having sex in a group. Yeah, that is way before. Yeah, of course, yeah, I was an F student. School wasn't really a big deal for me. I was like, yeah, maybe this is passing time. Then afterwards, I'm going to do my life. So that one has really introduced me to many different, habits, now because it is so easy for you to engage a lady like dating, and you have words and you're exposed to it earlier on, and you have a convincing tongue, and so it was I was very eloquent, so quick, and I can't imagine how I used to convince them, but it was just there. It was part of my nature, and it was part of who I was. And so before you know it, like a 15-year-old is just convincing you, and he's driving you crazy, and he really convinces you to just have sex with them. And my brother, it reached to a point where I could meet a lady for a very first time. I've never seen her in my life, and she has never seen me ever. And from introducing each other to kissing, you just have met a person in the very first time, but the easiest thing that you're going to do is just to kiss. So that was the level. That was the level. And yeah, so it made me popular. Because I was dating multiple girls. Now I'm a little bit, 17, I am a teenager. I'm just there, 18, 16. There I was a master. I was teaching young boys how to date, how to approach a lady. I was, everything. I was just lecturing them. I was giving them lectures, and I was teaching them how do you approach step by step from introducing yourself to having sex with them. So I was really teaching them, so I became just famous because of that, so teaching them to having group sex and everything. I was literally teaching them. So now it reached to a point where now I was not accessing sex on a daily basis. Now the masturbation habit came in. really. Not really. It was life. It was life. I was like, man, this is life. Imagine like everyone admiring you. Imagine everyone talking about you, that you are a master. You know, boys being afraid that I will take their girls. Being afraid, like, if you have a beef, you are in trouble. Your girl has gone.
I mean, when did you start live by those two principles?
I really don't know, but I always had, like, you know, a spirit of influence. Like, I always wanted to influence other people, just, you know, teaching them what I know. So now because I reflect back, and, you know, the commitment I had, the consistency I had in everything that I was doing, now I was like, yeah, these were the principles. I wasn't like aware that now these are the principles, but from the observation of the life I was living, I was very committed I was maximizing in everything I was doing. I was having sex on the streets. I was kissing everywhere. I don't care if you are watching me. What after all, what are you going to do? I am with my girl here. As long as we have agreed, as long as that we have, you know, a deal, I'm going just to do it. I'm just gonna kiss that girl. I'm just gonna, you know, touch that guy. Why? Because it reached a point where now I was mentoring other people. Now I'm doing it so that they might learn. Now, can you imagine? I was really masturbating like 3 times, 4 times a day. And now it reached, because I maximize, I have to do it. And if you are doing it and we know that you're doing it, I have to overcompete you. I have to overcompete you to the extent where now you become my student. So I remember introducing young boys to masturbation. Like, they're afraid, and I've really been doing it maybe for the past 2 years, and they are afraid, what are you going to? And, you know, I take the entire thing and I'm doing it for them. I am just doing it for them, and before they know it, it has become part of their lives. So that was very horrible. That was actually the ways of the enemy. You know, your life being destroyed, your life being like in that pit, and you're in darkness, and you are dragging other people into that darkness to be with you. So I had those principles, maximizing. Just if you are doing it and we know that we have a deal, brother, I am going to beat you down. You are down, because you have to become my student. I have just to outcompete you. I have to be smarter than you, and I have to, you know, to teach you. Now become my student. So I was really, I had that influence in young boys' lives, you know, teaching them and exposing to them. Now later on, you know, smoking comes in.
Wait. So when does smoking come in
now? So smoking, I remember we were somewhere, you know, and we had gone somewhere, and it was in the holidays. And so it was in the holidays, and I remember going somewhere with this group of young men. We just went. So they started smoking. That one I was introduced to it. Weed. You know, so they started smoking, and they said, do you want to try? I was like, yeah, let me try. And remember, everything I do, I maximize. My very first experience smoking, it was the entire bull. Like, it was the entire thing. Like, it was very crazy. Then I slept there. Actually, it really started way back. So I was very young. You know, you just to go somewhere and someone says, come take a sip. And yeah, before you know it, you thought it was a sip, and very tasty, and you're curious now. The next day, the amount is now going up, and, you know, to where the 2 principles kicked in, and, you know, I was a horrible drunkard. I was just there sleeping everywhere because of over-consuming, of over-consumption of alcohol. Yeah, so it started way. I can't recall exactly when, but yeah, it was in those areas.
That's before you started primary?
No, that maybe
during the primary school?
Yeah, during the primary school, yeah.
Oh man, I don't mean to brag about this, but maybe this, you know, you must have read these memes where people say that it's always embarrassing to be in a town and someone, steals from you, and you find out that this thief is called Jeremiah or Michael, and that's so. I'm trying to think of everybody sees you doing all that and you're calling Christ.
I know where you're driving at.
Yeah, but so this young man, Mkristo, who is addicted to everything,
all sorts of things,
and who is doing everything the maximum, and these are all bad things,
and teaching it to other people.
How do you meet Christ? How do you come to Christ? Because you told me that's the turning point. When you meet Christ, that's the turning point. Yeah. So maybe like many Christians will tell you that there is always a kind of a wake-up call. There's a way that God keeps enticing you to come to Him, and then one day it happens. So what's the story before you come to Christ, and how do you meet Christ?